Hello everybody! In this video, we're going to make our first program with dictionaries, and we're going to be translating the slang of young people. Alright, let's get going. So when you get old, you stop being able to understand the kids of today. Even if you can understand what the kids are saying, those words can change in meaning over time. So in the 1950s, the word ill might mean that you're sick, but in the 80s, it could mean that you're crazy. And then fast forward to the 2000s, and now ill could mean that you're cool. So that introduces the problem we're trying to solve. We're going to make a program that translates slang of the youth for old people like me for a particular snapshot in either time or location. We're going to start by getting the instructions. Here are my instructions. I'm going to use the same procedure that I've always used, so I'm going to zoom through this pretty quickly. I'm going to copy my file name from the starter code instructions, copy. I'm going to create a file in my PyCharm. So new Python file, paste that in, change my name here, and there's my new file. I'll go back to my replit. I'm going to copy over the entire file, Control C, Control V, and that's it for my instructions. My recommendation is to look at the lab instructions, look at the program run, and then try to make the program that does what the program run does. If you get stuck, then check out the rest of the video. If you do your programming this way, you'll struggle a little bit, but in struggling, you will learn how to program. And in the long run, this is what will make you a better programmer. So now I'm going to do everything from the hints step by step. Step one is to make the function. So the way I make a function is def function name parentheses colon. And I'm done with step one. Step two is to add the parameters. The parameters are going to go inside of the parentheses, and remember that they do two things. They get information from outside of the function, and after that, they're just variables. And because they're variables, we want to name them as we would name variables, with good names. So we have two parameters here. The first parameter is a dictionary of things to translate. So we could call that p_dict, where the p stands for the parameter. The second parameter is the word that we want to translate. So we can call that p_word. And then we're done. Step three, this function is going to have a return. So I'm just going to put a return in the code. And this is just to remind me that I'm going to need to return. It's not enough just to print something out. We're going to need a return. We'll come back and flesh this one out later. Step four, remember that dictionaries have keys and values. So between keys and values, the word that I'm looking for is the key, which is the first item of the pair. So I need to check to see if the word that I'm looking for, p-word, is in the dictionary as a key. And when I talk about needing to check, that means in my code, I need an if. And the check I need to do is to see if p-word is in the dictionary as a key. So here's the code. Again, I'm checking to see if p-word is in the dictionary as a key. And what if it is? Well, according to the instructions, I return the translation of the word. The translation is the value, which is the second item of the pair. So again, I return the value. And how do I get the value? The formula for value is the dictionary, square brackets, key. So in this case, my dictionary is pdict, the square brackets, and the key is p-word. And this is what I'm returning. And I can make this look a little bit nicer if I want. And here I'm returning a string, which describes what's being returned. But we need to test this out. If it's not tested, it's broken. So remember that my function by itself will do nothing. I need to call the function. And here's how I call the function. It's the function name and parentheses. And because I have two parameters here, I need two arguments here. And they need to match in the same order, which means my first argument is a dictionary and my second argument is a word. So let's try that out. So here, super important, I've named my dictionary outside of the function and I've passed it in as an argument. I need to make one more change here. When I call my function with a return, as this function has, there's a return. Remember, the returns do two things. They exit the function, but they also substitute. So it substitutes whatever was returned into wherever the function was called. So my recommendation, especially if you're a new programmer, is to save this to a variable of some sort and then do whatever you want with that variable, printing it, saving it for later, whatever. So let's try that out. And when I run the code, I get what I expect. And with that, we're done with this part. For step 5, we need to do the scenario where the word is not in the dictionary. And when you hear this, two scenarios. that means you should translate that to an if and an else in your code. Again, when I say two scenarios, that's if and an else. So I will add my else. And what does it want me to do here? It wants me to return something. It doesn't matter exactly. It should just have the words does not exist. So I will do that now. Does this work? And the answer that should be coming to your head is no, it does not work. It's not tested, it's broken. So let's test it now. The test I need to run to activate the else part of the code is to pick a word that's not in the dictionary. So jive turkey is not in the dictionary. It should print out something that says does not exist. I get what I expect, and I think my code works. And now that I think my code works, I'm going to get rid of my placeholder return. So here is pretty much the entire code. This lab has a few common mistakes that I want to go over now. By far and away, the most common mistake is to overwrite the dictionary in the function. So something like this. You do not want to do this. Why? Remember, the parameters get information from the outside world, and after that, they're just variables. And if I have a line like this, it overwrites the parameter that I have here. It overwrites that variable. So you're no longer really getting information from the outside world. You're going to hard code this dictionary for this function. And in terms of practical implications, that means it would work on a single dictionary, but you wouldn't be able to change dictionaries to use slang from the 50s or 70s or 90s, whatever. You'd be stuck with just this dictionary, which is not what I want. This is the same common mistake that we see in some of our older codes. Introduction, biggest pumpkin, the rock says. Be sure not to overwrite your parameters at the beginning. The second most common mistake is to loop over the dictionary's keys. So something like this. You could do it this way, but you don't need to do it this way. You can use the if key in dictionary.keys instead, so you can avoid the loop. If you remember from lists, you have if item in list. If you remember from strings, you have if character in string. And the analogous construction for dictionaries is if key in dictionary.keys parentheses. Finally, the third mistake that people make is that if the instructions say return, you have to have a return. You can't just print out this string. You have to actually return this string. This doesn't seem like a big deal now because you're just printing out what you return. But later on, when you save what you return and use it later, it becomes a much bigger deal. All right, so that's pretty much it. Hope that was useful to you. And if it was, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.